Hello, my name is Sachin Labde and I'm Associate Professor of English in the University of Mumbai. I'll be discussing with you the second module of the course in Innovation and Best Practices in Educational Skills. Let me begin with a very interesting remark by American philosopher Neil Postman, who says there can be no significant innovation in education that does not have its center the attitudes of the teachers. This is very apt and relevant in the context of the present course. If the attitudes of the educators are informed by the development in education psychology, it will only contribute to more innovation in education. Probably many of us have heard this often quoted sentence of the American historian Henry Adams that a teacher affects eternity. He can never tell where his influence stops. Well, I'd like to modify this a bit and say he or she can never tell where his or her influence stops. We may be teaching different subjects such as history, economics, microbiology, or a modern Indian language or foreign language. We may have different educational background. We may have different target learners. However, we will agree unanimously that a teacher does affect her or his learners, be it positive or negative affect. I am reminded of a very interesting category of lecturers which was proposed by Dr. John Millikan. He says that there are three categories of lecturers: those that make things happen, those that watch things happen, and those that wonder what happened. I'm sure that we all wish to be in the first or second category of, and certainly not in the third category. Hence, it is important that we consciously engage ourselves in the understanding of learner and learning. Pritchard comments, learning is something that we all understand and something that we have all taken part in. But how do we define learning, and are there any models or theories available to help us make sense of what is often a confusing and difficult concept to grasp? It is with these and such questions in consideration that the module of learning has been designed, which seeks to develop your knowledge and understanding of learning, especially in the context of higher education. Well, you might have this question, what exactly to expect from this module? So let us go into the objectives of this module. The first objective in this module is to discuss the concept of learning. Here we will discuss some popular myths about learning and then take a look at how learning is understood by various research scholars. Then we will undertake to understand the objectives of learning, which are also called the learning objectives in the context of higher education. It is believed if we have a fair understanding of what principles govern learning, we as educators will be in a better position to mold our teaching for effective learning. Hence, the third objective of this module is to understand the basic principles of learning. As educators, we might be curious if there are different types of learning, and can an understanding of such type contribute to better teaching? These and many more questions will be addressed in the section on types of learning. One of the most influential developments in educational psychology came in the second half of 20th century, where the psychologists claimed that all learners do not learn in the same manner. They have different learning styles. This belief has influenced curriculum designing in general and teaching learning experiences in particular very much. In the next section, we will discuss the concept of learning styles and also take into consideration the latest research into which claims that learning styles is a myth. Surprised? Well, we will discuss this, that how these two contradictory views stay side by side. Finally, we will examine various models of learning and discuss how the understanding can contribute to better equipping us for teaching. Well, let me summarize all the objectives for you once again. Concept of learning, objectives of learning, principles of learning, types of learning, learning styles, and models of learning. Pritkar comments, learning is something that we all understand and something that we have all taken part in. I'm sure that all of us actually agree on this, that we all know what learning is or we have experienced learning. But how do we define learning? And are there any models or theories available to us which make sense of what is often a confusing and difficult concept to grasp? It is with these and such questions in consideration that the module of learning has been designed, which seeks to develop your knowledge and your understanding of learning, especially in the context of higher education. Well, you must have this question in mind, actually what to expect from this module. Let us see. The first objective in this module is to discuss the concept of learning. Here, we will discuss some popular myths about learning and then take a look at how learning, in inverted commas, is understood by various research scholars. Then we will take into consideration the objectives of learning, which are also known as learning objectives in the context of higher education. I'll be emphasizing the word higher education time and again because I do understand that the participants are basically lecturers or associate or assistant professors working in various institutes of higher education. And it is believed if we have a fair understanding of what principles govern learning, we as educators will be in a better position to mold our teaching for effective learning. Hence, the third objective of this module is to understand the principles of learning. As educators, we might be curious if there are different types of learnings and can an understanding of such type contribute to better teaching. These and many more questions will be addressed in a section on types of learning. One of the influential developments in educational psychology came in the second half of 20th century, where the psychologists claim that all learners do not learn in the same manner. They have different learning styles. This belief has influenced curriculum design in general and teaching learning experiences in particular very much. In the next section, we will discuss this concept of learning styles. And at the same time, we'll take into consideration the latest research in this area which claims that learning styles are a myth. I'm sure you are surprised to see two different sides of learning styles, but we will take into consideration these two and we'll arrive at a very comprehensive conclusion. Finally, we will examine various models of learning and discuss how this understanding can contribute to better equipping us for teaching. So let us summarize the objectives of this module. 1. The concept of learning. 2. Objectives of learning. 3. Principles of learning. 4. Types of learning. 5. Learning styles. And 6. Models of learning. Before we move on, let's take a break and ponder over a couple of views. There's a particular view which says, I teach, therefore you learn. I'm sure that today we do not buy or subscribe to this particular view because we all have experienced as teachers as well as learners that whether someone teaches us or does not teach, we continue to learn. So learning happens irrespective of teaching. So no one is going to buy a view that I teach, therefore you learn. Let us now take a look at another view which says, tell me and I forget, show me and I remember, involve me and I understand. I'm sure many of us will nod our heads and say that yes, that is how learning happens. And this is the particular aspect of learning that we are going to take into consideration. Before we move on, there's a reflection spot. Now, I would like you to pause this video and take a look at this question. Can there be a single universal definition of learning? You have to decide yes or no. And you also have to write down one reason for why you think it is so. After doing so, you can resume the video. Well, now let us begin with this assumption that you have done this activity. Some of you may have thought of learning as a change in behavior as a result of experience or practice. Some may consider learning as the acquisition of knowledge, or learning as process of gaining knowledge of or skill in something through study, teaching, instruction, or experience. Or it may be considered a process by which behavior is changed, shaped, or controlled. What we can say about learning is that it is a very broad concept, and a common definition of learning in higher education is fairly elusive. Since we have made it this far in life, we probably think that we know how we learn and eventually how others learn. But it turns out that false beliefs about learning, as much as teaching, are a problem that we carry with us for a long time till we or someone does question it. There is a gap between conventional wisdom and facts when it comes to the process of learning. Many experts, such as Bowser, have maintained that there are many myths about learning. Let us take a look at some of these myths.